All right, record button's on there. Again, so half sentence here real quick. What do you remember most from last week? We'll start here with Sam.
Do I remember the quiet steps? I remember quiet steps.
Cool. Dave?
5-foot circle around second base.
Absolutely. Scott?
I think staying on the same track as the base, the
Cool.
player.
Yeah, as the fielder. Good job there. Dale?
Maintaining proper distance to see the play. Not too close, not too far.
Yeah, do you remember what that target distance was?
5 feet?
You got it. 5 feet. Good work. Mr. Ekstrom, what do you remember from last week?
Yeah, I would say the 5-foot distance and the arc. Those
Cool.
two.
Mr. Tarnapol?
The 5-foot distance, which I still struggle with a little bit based on the
Mhm.
videos. I'd like to talk about that later.
Yep.
But being on top of the play and at an appropriate distance.
Cool. Tom, what do you remember most from last week?
I think the starting position being on shortstop side of the base. I think I'm going to try and put that into play. And then on the inside, when you're on the inside on a two-man crew, is changing my position back to closer to the cutout. I
Yeah.
got some games coming up here that I'm going to try and work on that.
Cool. Mr. Calcano? You're muted.
Sorry, I was muted. For me, I think what it really comes down to is getting on the right side of the base, the proper side, based on where the throw's coming in. I know that's still within that understanding the circle. I think what it really comes down to is before the throw, getting into that right space between or behind the fielder taking the throw.
Yeah, good. Mr. Elliott, can you give us an answer?
It's constantly moving. It's never a set spot. You're constantly moving around with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam?
Yeah, the same thing that Andy just said. Not locking into one specific spot and leaning with the play.
Cool. Well, those are all good answers, and everybody came away with mostly, all those fundamentals. Getting closer is half the battle, like Pete alluded to, and then just from there, continue to move along the arc, and it is just continue to move and continue to evolve. I'm going to go ahead and put us into breakout groups here. There are some people that will be here without audio, so they may be in your groups and just can't hear, or can't speak just because of where they're at. When you're in those groups, and I'm going to go ahead and put these into the chat so that everybody can see the chat here in just a second. I'll put these questions in there just a second, but what you're going to do is spend about 3 to 5 minutes or so answering these 3 questions. The first of which that I have for you is, can you guys come together and list the 3 steps of the wedge? Okay, so what are the 3 steps to finding the wedge? That's the first one. Second one, go ahead and discuss which you prefer as an initial starting position. Is it B? Is it C? Is it on the inside or the outside on those bigger diamonds? So that's the second piece. What do you prefer as an initial starting position, inside or outside, B or C, with R1 and R2 only in those conversations? And then lastly, what do you remember most? What are you most fuzzy on? Like, what do you need me to clear up? Okay, and I'll put those 3 into the chat here right now so that everybody can have those. So the first thing, again, is the steps to the wedge. Remember, there are 3 steps to the wedge, so you want to try and figure out what those are. The second question then to go ahead and talk about is, which do you prefer, B or C? And then talk about that with R1 only and R2 situations, and then also think about big and small diamonds, okay, whether you prefer on the inside or the outside. And then the third piece then, what is still fuzzy? Okay, some things that you guys need clarified on. I'll go ahead and drop that one off into the chat. I'll go ahead then and get us into our breakout rooms here. So let me go ahead and click on that one here. I'll put us into teams of 4. I think that'll work. And again, you'll want to answer those 3 questions. Let's see here. The time right now is 12:36, so we'll wrap up at about 12:40. Okay, and I'll have a 1-minute timer on for you there. All righty, so everyone then should be dropped into a breakout room. And again, you guys can go ahead and talk about those things from there.
Hi, Tony. Hi, Kevin.
Guys.
All right, so 3 steps of the wedge. Obviously, I think, first one, stay within 5 feet of the fielder anticipating the throw.
One.
Number 1. Who's got number 2 for me?
Track. Finding the right track. So I would say whether you're left side, right side, coming from the throw.
Okay.
I'm outside.
Yeah, little diamond, I feel like it's way too small for you to be inside no matter anything. You got to be outside there. And then big diamond, it's weird being on the outside now because for so many years it was never ever like that. But it's just taking getting used to. But it makes sense.
I'm not outside. I mean, I'm off the grass, but I'm now standing in there. Like if you saw how Will, the major league umpire, was doing it, I'm probably, depending on if there's not a runner on second, I'm out a good 7 feet, 6, 7 feet. Always looking where the shortstop is. If there's a guy on second, then I'm playing it by ear and seeing what he's up to.
Unless they're asking you to go somewhere else, probably stay on the inside.
Yeah, you just have so many responsibilities as a 2-man. You can only do so much on the steal plays.
Right.
But when you have that advantage of having multi-member crews, I found C to be much more easier to step into the play and get that good swipe tag view, so you're not looking through players like you would like in B.
So even on a 2-man on the big, you're starting in C.
In
On the
2-man, I would
inside?
probably start in B just because you
Start
have
in
the
B.
pick off
Okay.
and everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got like 12 games coming up in the next few weeks, so nice split of both on the big dime.
Of a reason to be on C on the inside.
I can't either.
Stu?
On the small diamond, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say. Well, you're kind of
big diamond for that matter.
so you. I guess depends what you mean by the inside, right? But if you have a play coming in from right field or right center, you would be towards that.
And if you got
towards the inside,
you got an R1,
right?
Yeah.
Well, if it's coming in from left field, you would swing around to the point or on the 5 foot.
Yeah, and I had the same experience as Adam was just talking about my regional in 2018. I think we worked the C position almost the entire time.
Yeah, until ESPN told us get out of the way.
That had to make for quite a kind of a change, right? You're getting used to being in a certain position all the time, and now
Alrighty, everybody. Well, welcome back in. Some really good discussion I got to hear and drop in on from a lot of different people. So it sounded like everybody got the three elements of the wedge pretty easy here. The first of which is to start 5 to 7 feet from the fielder receiving the throw. Second thing is if he moves, we move. And the third one is use those quiet steps to close in and still maintain those different distance. Those are the three that we should have at least came up with. And again, start 5 to 7 directly behind the fielder receiving the throw. He moves, we move. And the third one, use those quiet steps to go ahead and find your wedge there. So I think everybody did a good job there too. Some interesting discussion here on B versus C. And obviously, one thing to at least clarify, and I probably should have said this before we got started, is like this is as in a multi-member crew. Like, would you be more willing to go to B or C? And it was interesting to hear and experience why and how people made their decisions for B and C with R1 only. Some very interesting things to think about there with all those. What I do want to do is kind of open it up with some of the things that you may be fuzzy about still on if you got there. So I'll kind of do the around the room technique here again. I'll just call on you. And if there's something you are fuzzy with, go ahead and share it with me. All right. Let's start with Mr. Rakowski. Scott, what do you got for me? Anything fuzzy?
No, I don't think so at the moment.
Cool. That's a good answer. Tony?
No, nothing.
Awesome. Kenton? Good. All righty. Pete?
For me, it's just the distance between where you should be, because I struggle with the videos because I think they're way too close for Little League umpires, and the Major League umpires, you'll notice, are appreciably further back so they can see everything in one view. So I just struggle with the Little League ones and understanding where I should be.
Yeah. I've got a couple more clips here throughout the next stretch of the stuff to definitely target that one here on that 5 foot range. So yeah, good point. Dale, what are you struggling with? Anything that's fuzzy still for you?
Only the B and C, getting the B and C positions, starting positions down firm in my head.
Yeah, and remember that's it's kind of counterintuitive to what we've always been taught. Like, if you think back to just regular 2-man, you have to be in B, right? With R1 only. But now when we have multi-member crews, like our responsibility is second base and then making sure we can get to where we need to if we have to rotate. So we have some liberty then to play with B and C and just kind of figuring out what the advantages and disadvantages are of each of them. And we'll continue to go through that stuff too. Dave, what about for you? What else might still be a little fuzzy for you?
Swinging over from C to get in position when the throw's coming from left field and maybe left field to the foul line.
Gotcha. And that's what we'll actually hit next week is like throws from the outfield. So we're sticking with the ones this week kind of on the steal plays, the back picks, and I'll talk about slipping and things like that here in just a second too. Mr. Legg, anything you're fuzzy with here with the wedge at second base? You're muted.
Actually, it's all kind of fuzzy to me right now, Stu. And the reason for that is that I only do Little League, and there isn't any Little League here this summer.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't had a chance to go out and work it. I appreciate what everybody else is sharing, and I'm trying to absorb that and looking forward to the opportunity to get out on the field and try it.
Yeah, that's real. It's just trying to find the reps to put it in play. So yeah, that's definitely real. Well, cool. There's a good list there. And if you think of anything else that's still fuzzy and you want to share it with me, go ahead and drop it in the chat. And I'll make sure that I kind of address it towards the back end of things here. But what is on tap today, and I want to share a couple clips. It won't be all that long, but just on 2 basic principles. Number one, the back picks. And Pete, I think this will get to what you were asking about with the distance, because there is a Major League example and some examples of some of the Little League guys here in those clips for us to talk through. So the back picks. And then the second thing that I want to go through is kind of this idea of slipping or rimming for the play after the play. So we'll get ready to go ahead and talk about that here now. Let me go ahead and share my screen. We'll go desktop here. And let me find what exactly it is that I want to go ahead and share. Right there it is. Okay. Alrighty, so here we are in a back pick situation. And here in this situation, we've got runners at first and second. Okay, so R2 is occupied. And this happens to be a pickoff attempt from the pitcher. And obviously this is a major league example. Now, if we take a look here real quick, we started with the conversation of where do you prefer to start? And then if you take a look at this one, this umpire, I think we can all agree here, starts in B with R2 here. Okay, so that's an interesting concept for us to go through. But again, notice his distance is probably about 5 to 7 feet from the fielder, okay, from the fielder receiving the throw. And here we've got a pretty close play that ends up happening. Okay, so I'll run it back here to the pickoff attempt. The pitcher's throwing it right now. There's the ball, the tag, and our umpire's positioning, okay? Calls the runner safe. And then, of course, everybody's like, let's go to replay and take a look at this one. Couple replay angles that'll be very interesting for us to see. As this one goes in, I think what they ended up ruling on this one was that you can see this fielder catches the ball behind the base, and then when he goes to put the tag down, he actually ends up tagging the dirt and not the hand. Okay, so it's an interesting fraction of a viewing angle for us to go ahead and look at here. Okay. Now, on the back side of this, as we go ahead and watch this one develop, I think this angle is one that we can all kind of appreciate. Because if you're on the inside of this play, you're probably straight lined on that difference between tagging the dirt and tagging the hand. But by using the wedge on the backside, you're able to see both of those things, the dirt and the tag on the dirt and the hand into the base. And if you take a look at this umpire, I mean, he's got, I think we can all agree that he's probably got a fantastic view down and through this tag attempt. Whereas if he was in traditional C, kind of position yourself right there and think about how tight of a wedge that actually would be. And you'd end up being straight lined because the tag attempt then would be between you and the runner's hand into the base. Okay. Same thing if you were in B as well, you'd still kind of be straight lined on that one too. So just a food for thought here as we continue to think about B versus C in initial starting positions with R1 only, R2 situations. What I'm suggesting and basically theorizing is that if we flip what we usually learned in two-man, where we are in C when we're supposed to be in B, and we're in B when we should be in C, you think about those, and you flip it on the bigger diamond, you put yourself on the outside, and we get great viewing angles to really difficult plays. Any questions for me on this one?
Yeah, Stu, this is Pete.
Go ahead, Pete.
There's no way that umpire can see the front of the base between the base and third base to make that call from where he is. There's just no way.
Yeah, and intuitively, it kind of makes sense to position on the backside, and here's why. You got to remember the throw is coming from the inside part of the base. So the fielder's tag attempt is definitely going to be there. But if you're a runner, you're going to slide to the outer part of the base. So the wedge and finding the wedge is based upon that idea that the runner is going to try and slide to the furthest point away from the tag attempt. And in this case, it's the outer half of the base. So seeing the outside of the base here is a little bit more important than seeing the inside of the base. And again, it's multi-member crew mechanics, so it's a little bit different of a philosophy there.
So, Stu, on a four-man on the big, should we move from the inside to the outside now? Is that what's being?
No. So there's no guidance or directive to tell you to go to the outside now. But what I will tell you is to do what you're most comfortable with. DJ worked the Senior World Series last year, and he still works inside. He's probably one of the best I've seen at the wedge, especially at second base. And, he still works it inside. And he'll get this wedge, and DJ, correct me if I'm wrong, but he'll get this wedge by trying to be in C, by getting as close to the cutout as possible, almost like toes on the dirt of that grass line on the baseline there. And then he would basically get, to Pete's point, that angle back through here where you can probably see all sides of the base.
Yeah, we touched on it. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I kind of switched up some of my car audio. We touched on it a little bit last week, how the wedge is 360. Or how we need to work a 360-degree arc, which gives us two wedges, one on the outside, one on the inside. So I still elect to be on the inside on the big diamond. So yes, with R2, and I have a potential steal play, a potential pickoff, I will be right down on this screenshot right here. I'll be heels on that line, heels on the grass right there, looking in and getting the opposite wedge of what this umpire, Chris Conroy, is getting. And then with an R1 only, I'm going to be on the same spot except on B side. My heels are going to be on the grass line. I'm going to take 2, maybe 3 strides into the play as the ball is coming in from the catcher on a steal play, and I'm going to have that wedge on the inside. As Stu said, there is no directive or guidance. This is totally personal preference. We're essentially leading the charge and trying to develop this wedge theory for Little League Baseball. So the beautiful thing is we have the opportunity here to experiment, and we have great instruction, obviously, to put these things into practice. So this is all about opening our minds and opening our eyes to see plays from different angles.
Yeah, and Tom, like DJ said, I'm just kind of giving us a variety of different ideas, and then from there you make them your own. What you're most comfortable in executing, I think.
Right. I like them. I like them both. I can see the inside and the outside.
Yeah.
And I can see use for both of those. But
yeah, and with that, I would encourage you just to experiment when you get the chance to in multi-member crews and see which one works best practically for you. And if you get caught up in one, then just switch on over and find what works best for you.
Okay.
Yeah, good question. Anything else here on the ideas of back picks and with R2 taking them from B as opposed to C on the outside? Anything else?
Stu, there is some I want to touch on.
Yeah.
Sammy brought it up last week. That I thought it was a great point, and it's something that I do. Even if I'm not going to have a play, always practice where you should be. If your fielder's moving one way, follow that fielder. Take practice steps. If you're working the dish and you got a catcher that's taking a couple steps up the line, move with the catcher. Get in the habit of getting on those tracks, even with no play, because that's going to make a huge impact for you getting those mental reps in. The wedge is mental reps. I've had maybe 3 plays in the wedge at second base, and I work second base as much as I can. I've had maybe 2 plays in the wedge at home plate, but it's the mental reps and taking those physical steps when I'm on the field when I don't have a play that pay off when the big play is there. Sammy talked about that last week, and I just wanted to reiterate that.
Yeah, good point. All right, I'll go ahead and move on to the next major concept here, and that concept then has to deal with, where'd it go again? That concept has to deal then with the idea of slipping or rimming on the outside. So here, that was the end of that play. But here, the whole idea is this. We had always been taught, and there's another back pick from B. We've already kind of talked our way through that one. So this again here is the play after the play. So the whole concept of us here on rimming is that once the throw from the outside, from like the outfield, clears us, we should then kind of reposition for the play after the play. And that's kind of what the whole idea here is this one. So example here for us, the ball's hit to the outfield, and let's take a look at U2. He's got to take a look just in case he's got catch, no catch on a shoestringer. Good job there. But then as this throw goes ahead and comes in, notice the work here of U2. And Kevin Southall, you were great at this during your regional in 2018. Here's Rick. And what Rick does is he just moves along the arc, because if this throw gets cut off and it goes back to second base, we've got to be in position for that one. Likewise, if the catcher determines here, this is a highlight reel for Andy as he's working the wedge in that place. But if the catcher decides that there's not going to be a play, cuts it off here and throws it to second base, then we've got to be in position here again to make sure that we can see that play. And as you can kind of see through this one, as I rewind it back through, Rick does a great job of what we call working the arc in the background here, so that he then is right behind that fielder and can make that call. The same would be true as if you were on a 90-foot diamond. So think about if you were on a big diamond and you chose to start inside. Well, once that ball is in flight from the cutoff, there's no need for you to be on the inside anymore here. So slipping to the outside then gives you that best possible viewing angle on the next play. And that's what we want to go ahead and set up for. All right. Talk about Andy's wedge later on once we get to the wedge at the plate. Here's another really good look at U2. Okay, initial starting position with R2 is in B. It's a tight B, as we've kind of talked about with the back picks. But here is a play to the outfield. And again, okay, if we take a look here as this play happens, let me rewind it just a little bit. As this fielder decides to go ahead and throw the ball to the plate, Like if this ball gets cut off, this umpire, I've got to be ready then for a potential play either on R2 here in this situation or anything back in. So as you see, there's no need for me to pivot into the infield on the small diamond here because I would just be pivoting in to get in the way of like a cutoff or whatever else the case may be. But if you take a look here on the back side of this one, as the throw clears me, so as this ball is in flight, okay, I go ahead and I start to work around the arc and then get right back on that path or on that track of the fielder. And as R2 goes ahead, or R1, the batter runner in this case, starts to advance towards second base, if there's going to be a play there, I'm definitely in position then to go ahead and take a look at that play. Okay. Any questions on the concept of slipping there, or of rimming, excuse me, on the smaller diamond? Okay, on the bigger diamond then, this is DJ's clip here, all right? So here, DJ is, and you can kind of see, if I, show you here, DJ's not in the picture. He's the second base umpire in this clip, but he's not in the picture because he's working so tight in this situation to that grass line, okay? Now, this will go, and then I got a still frame right here. The ball's going to be hit to left field, right? Here's the ball where the cursor is, and you'll note that DJ started here, okay? So right there he is. I think he actually starts in B in this case. But what's important to realize here is that as the ball in this play gets thrown into the infield, okay, as the ball gets thrown into the infield, he's got to be ready. Okay, so again, right there we start to see it. Here it looks like once the fielder gets it, that he's going to come home with this throw, right? But again, we've got a batter runner who may be putting this one into a double. And the left fielder sees that, cuts it, and then ends up throwing it back to second base. And now if we take a look, DJ's on the outside. He's slipped to the outside. So it's important for us to realize that, unless we're really rotating, the whole idea of us pivoting in with the ball on the outside kind of goes away in multi-member crews, simply because we're going to find ourselves having to dodge the baseball, this, that, and the other when we're positioned on the inside, especially as U2. So the only time you really need to pivot into the working area, as if you were in a two-man, but if you're in a multi-member crew, the only time that you need to pivot into the working area is if you have to rotate to another base. And here DJ does a good job of starting on the inside, as we've talked about, and then slipping to the outside so that he can then go ahead and get on the same track as that fielder if there were to be a play at second base. Now, this runner probably should have tried to put it into a double, and DJ's body language here is like, why didn't you run? But that is an important concept for us to realize, is that we can't stay and hang out in the middle. We've got to continue to slip, or on the smaller diamonds, rim to the outside. Anybody have any questions for me over those two major concepts, back picks and slipping and rimming? Well, all righty. I'll get ready to wrap things up here, and I'll hang around with any questions here in just a second. But nonetheless, what I would like to go ahead and do is just to get a feeler on things for you. So if you would, from a scale of 0 to 90, okay, with your arms here, from 0 to 90, kind of tell me where exactly you are comfortability-wise with the wedge. Either 0, I need absolutely a bunch of help, or 90, I'm in good shape. Okay, show me here on the angles. How do you feel about the wedge here at second base? Uh-oh, Dale. Gotcha. Cool. All righty, guys. Well, I appreciate you being here. It's a little after 1. I'll let everybody go. Same time, same place. And as many of you guys started to introduce the concept last week, or earlier in this session, next week we'll take a look at throws from right field, left field, and center field, and how all this positioning, initial starting position, then starts to put us in the right spots to take plays on runners as we hit into those base. And Pete will also get into some good clips with proper distance as well, and have that conversation. Guys, thanks again for being here. Have a great week, and I'll see you next week at 12:30.